Oh, hello, yeah, well, about to approach midweek, whatever that means. Well, it's probably the bit that's in between the beginning and the end. Anyway, yes, yesterday I had one of those kind of rambling conversations I do occasionally in one of my lessons with a parent and child about why are we doing this? And yes, some of the most subversive questions you can ever ask are why, because all too often you will find when you ask a why questions, particularly about work or something else, you end up with somebody not really giving you a very comprehensive answer. And I don't know why exactly it is that we still use Pythagoras in GCSE maths. I can understand on a conceptual level why we do, but I don't really know the particular value of that at 16 and so many other things that we do at 16. One might say, why do we still have exams at 16 when we basically expect young people to stay in school till they're 18? Nobody really knows. You ask the question and you just met with, well, it's just the way things are. It's the way things have been done. So much in education is about the way that things have been done. We start in September. Why? Nobody knows. Anyway, moving on from that, but perhaps not by far, yesterday you had a huge announcement from the Labour Party, you'll guess, about young people. And what we need to do with young people is basically kick them because they're all lazy gits. They've always been lazy gits. The people that are now in their 60s and 70s were lazy gits. The people that were in their 50s and 40s and 30s and 20s, all of them have gone through a lazy git situation whereby they all need to be kicked because it's the only thing you can do with lazy gits. We got this from the Telegraph. Just 1 in 20 jobless young people will be hit by Reeves's benefits crackdown. Chancellor's new youth guarantee expansion will only reach a fraction of those out of work. Yes, it needs to reach loads more people out of work who are out of work, and they're all gits and they're young people and they need to not be neats. But whenever I hear this kind of stuff, I always think to myself, well, why is it that there are so many disaffected young people that basically don't want to, particularly young people, go into work? Because even the most basic sort of assumptions there are in the Telegraph piece just simply say, well, they just must, right? All of us must just be in service of the economy. We just must. Nobody asks the question why that might be important. Nobody asks the question, or if you do ask the question, you're just treated with some sort of weird contempt because, of course, we all need to be in service of the economy. I mean, even the evidence that the Telegraph piece itself gives us is about the number of young people in NEETs. You might see where we're about to be. There, it's the little dot at the end with the 15. You can see it's not as high as it was after the very big last recession. I know there's another one coming, but after that one. So why are we panicking now about it? And you can see the steep thing that happened in and around COVID. So what exactly is going on now? Why are we here now? Well, let's not answer that question because that might create all sorts of problems that we don't want to answer, because we might then have to accept that, yes, it is actually this century and not the previous one, and maybe the economy looks different now from what it did then. But why exactly are we so utterly determined to get more young people into the economy? Because, strangely enough, in the in the Telegraph, in the money section, there's a long piece about why it is so hard to get a job these days. I wonder if some of these things might be linked, perchance, yeah? What is it? And why is it so hard to get a job? Well, because there aren't menial jobs anymore. There aren't low-skilled jobs anymore. There aren't realistically even semi-skilled jobs anymore. Everything requires a great deal of time, effort and energy by all people involved in order to extract, well, the maximum value of profit out of them. And therein lies the problem. As a child growing up, and indeed as a young adult growing up, and indeed as a young adult growing up, and indeed as an older adult growing up, I'm always intrigued by the notion that we have to be in service of the great God of the economy. And why isn't the economy in the service of the great God that is humanity? And the answer is we don't do things that way, to which my reply would be, why? Progress, after all, surely used to be measured by how generically we were getting on. And a lot of that kind of getting on, getting there, wherever there might be, did involve a certain level of, personal satisfaction. To grow up in the 60s and 70s was to be growing up in an era of rising wealth for all. Bit of a historical anomaly, as we now seem to find. And why can't we go back to that when we had all of those decent jobs where people worked generically together for the service of a society rather than individualistically in the service of someone else's profitable notions. And there is no answer to that, or there's no simple answer to that, but various people will clutch at things which may or may not resemble pearls and become very frothy at the mouth if you dare to ask such questions. I'm sorry, I'm one of those gits, I've done it all my life. But why should we be pushing people into jobs that are menial, low paid and degrading? And in order to get all of these young people into these jobs, how much effort will it take? And what exactly will be the cost on us, the metaphorical taxpayers, and what exactly will be the benefit to, those people that are actually trying to employ people? I'm always astounded by those people that swear about, blind about the entrepreneurial society, the way that they won't simply allow those people at the bottom to become entrepreneurial. Why don't we just, for example, investigate notions of universal basic income, which would allow people the time to train and see what they're really good at, rather than scrambling around to find the rent, which is extortionate every month, to simply pay, someone else, because we do live in that kind of rentier society. But that involves, of course, asking loads and loads of why questions, which nobody at the top of the pile will see fit to do anything other than get cross about. And ultimately, that's what it's about. It's about the people at the top of the pile. But I'm sorry, but I want to live in a society. I don't want to live in an economy. And as for young people, I don't see why they should, for example, be made, the whipping boy at the bottom of the pile for all of the things that their elders have, quite consciously mucked up. Most of the boomers around me are doing extremely well. Almost everyone isn't. Now, there's something wrong in society if that's the case. But by God, you can't just expect young people to go, oh, all right then, I'll have a rubbish life because otherwise I don't want to inconvenience you. Anyway, do carry on not asking any awkward questions. After all, it's no wonder we need a crackdown on everything if they get gits like me asking difficult and unanswerable questions. But there you go. I suppose I am way too subversive for my own good, or just too curious. But I think we need a lot more of it, and the young people I work with do tend to have that level of curiosity, and I feel they should carry on doing so. We could live in a society, which is a lot more like your sort of Morris's idea of stories from nowhere. We could do, where we could sit and spend a bit more time in the sun. We'd all be happier, and ultimately we'd all be a lot more productive. But somebody somewhere will see that on the accountant's spreadsheet it doesn't quite work out well enough for them, and that's when they'll write very, very staunch opinion pieces in the Telegraph telling me in particular how wrong I am. Anyway, do have a lovely one if you can do, and remember, if you can't, I don't know, have maybe a poor attitude and let it be shown. That always gets the people's gut backs up as well. Do enjoy your day if you can do, and if you can't, ask awkward questions as to why that is. Maybe of yourself. Enjoy.